Welcome to the Parent Guide to GCSE podcast, episode number 13. Today's guest is Jonathan Lewis, who is the Service Director for Education at Cambridge County Council and Peterborough City Council. Right, Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us today. We have so many questions and hopefully we can get some answers for our parents out there to do with, and obviously we're recording this at the time of the coronavirus pandemic, so that's just to let everyone know if they're listening to this a little bit later. But I dare say you have been, thank you for joining us by the way, but I dare say you've been a very, very busy man.
It's been, it's been quite an experience actually. So I was talking to our chief exec the other day and we've had one day off since this all started. So that includes bank holidays and everything. But actually it's been a really interesting experience because we've been on a real roller coaster and new guidance comes out. You know, we meet with heads, we talk to our staff and actually, it's brought people together, a real sense of camaraderie around, trying to keep education on track, getting this ready. And we're kind of coming towards the end now of a phase, and there'll be another one to come yet. But it's been an interesting experience all round, really. So,
I'll bet. For you, what's your biggest challenge that you've had over this period?
I think it's been the lack of government guidance we've had, actually. So I see my role in the local authority as being one of trying to bring people together. We've got bits of information here and there. Let's do something sensible. Obviously safety has to be top of everything we've absolutely had to do. That interpretation, that synthesis of what we do and don't know, some good solid thinking. I think that's been one of the strengths actually, is that the way it's brought people together in the education sector has been amazing. So, I've met with the Academy Trust CEOs pretty much, twice a week since this started. We've all agreed, we've all put, the children of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough sort of at the heart of what we do, and we've tried to, really make things work the best we can. And it's been tough, and I'm sure some of the parents listening to this, have had different experiences. But actually, what we've tried to do is share things, work together, and really collaborate, because it's got to be good for children. If we get it right, it's all the better.
It must be nice to be able to take the politics out of it and just put the children first, because I dare say some of the guidance does have a little bit of political spin on it.
Yeah, and that's been one of the challenges. So we've questioned many times, how much of this is driven by the Department for Education, how much of this is driven by a bigger factor. And let's be honest, economic considerations are always going to come into something as big as this. But actually, what we've done locally is we've not played that game in lots of ways. I wouldn't, I used to work for the Department for Education. I know how difficult their role is, and actually, what we've tried to do instead is find ways to work around that. Education shouldn't be a political issue. It never has been. Actually, it's about what's doing right. And I think the one focus that we're going to continue to look to now is that. Education is all about transition. Actually, it's all about getting children ready to be adults. If we ever lose that, well, we haven't done our jobs, have we? So, yes, different scenario, yes, different context. We're going to have a really challenging 12, 18 months coming up. But actually, the focus should be on what happens to children as they move on to the next stage of their education or into employment.
There's lots of nodding going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we've found parents have said a lot, and we've been reading online and things, is the public perception in some cases, largely caused by media reports, is that teachers have just had 4 months off and now they're going to get a summer holiday and isn't it all lovely. And some of the headlines that have come out have been incredibly frustrating and misleading. I'm thinking of things like, I read in an article yesterday how a certain percentage of schools aren't even doing online classes, when really that's probably due to the fact that the parents and the children just don't have access to online, and so they're setting their work in a different way. But I think teachers are getting a fairly good bashing. What's your experience of the school sector and teachers in particular, and how they've been working to support kids over this kind of pandemic, I suppose?
Interesting one, really, because education is so cyclical. You do the same things. You teach different things at different times, but actually it's a cycle. It's a 12-month window you go through, and this time of year you would be probably for secondary teachers getting ready for the next term. there'll be all sorts of work still going on planning wise. That's completely gone out of the norm. Nothing is the same from one day to the next. And I think it's hard for people to adjust to that, as it is for people being in lockdown. Our teachers have gone into school. We in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, our numbers have been incredibly high throughout. We always aim to do what the best we could. Delivering teaching at home is very different than delivering it in the classroom.
Very much so.
There has been a huge amount of investment into resources. We are contacting those parents that need contacting very regularly. There is an element and degree of complying with government guidelines. So we've just been through the whole GCSE results. What do we submit? How do we work it out? The justification behind that, the evidence. Teachers have worked endlessly. It's been really tough. I do have to say though, head teachers in particular, the call on them has been massive, really. And we've opened every holiday. There's been an element of everything going on. We opened all Easter. We've opened bank holidays. People have worked hard, and they are very, very tired, as I am. But actually, we're all focused on one thing, and that's getting children back into school now. And the meeting I've just held with 300 heads was all about what do we need to do to make September as smooth as it can possibly be, and not fall into the trap that's been out there about let's start teaching English and maths because that's all we should be doing. No, children need to go back and love school again. And I can give the experience. My daughter's in year 10. She's just gone back to school, and she loves it. She's loved going back, and that just shows the role we play and how important school is. And those teachers have tried to keep that going at a distance, and that's hard work and reaching out and doing things differently. And even teachers aren't familiar with working at home. It doesn't happen. They don't do it. So a skill that I'm not very good at working at home myself. At least I've had experience of doing it. Lots haven't. So they've had to learn a whole new way of working. And great credit to them for the work they've done in the last 4 months to keep them on track. And a lot more work still to come.
Absolutely. Can I just ask though, with September in mind, what is your biggest concern about the September start?
I think it's probably around the things that we don't know. How are children going to be ready for learning? I'd encourage parents, get sleep patterns right. Get children to reflect on what they've learned so far. Don't be afraid to pick up your books and have a look through them. When we come to September, there will be lots of pastoral support. Schools are very minded that children will come in. Yes, behaviours will be challenging. There will need to be a period of adjustment, but we just don't know what that's going to look like at the moment. What we have learned from the children that have been into reception year 1, year 6, year 10 and year 12 is that actually children have adjusted well. They're very resilient children. We don't often give them the credit for that, but they are. But there will be a group of children that will need more help. There will be anxiety, there will be stress related to it. That stepping into the new term is going to be really key. And, parents really need to talk to their children about it, offer support. There's lots of information out there about, that sort of adjusting to change. And we will do everything we can in schools to support parents with that.
Yeah, because that's, I think, our biggest concern, practicalities wise, logistics and things, but just that being able to settle back in. So our daughter is in year 6. She's obviously about to therefore start her secondary school career, and she's not been able to do any of the transitions. So she's more nervous than she would have been, I think, because she's not had the chance to kind of go in and look around and be a student for a while. And so I know there are a lot of parents that are worried about that, but I also know how hard schools will be working to make sure that is as comfortable an experience for kids as possible, because for some of them it'll been 6 months away from the school situation, even if they have been learning at home, and getting back into classroom versus working from home is just as challenging for the teachers as it is for the kids. And it's going to be an interesting one, but and
a heads of thought about that, just to reassure everyone. We haven't been able to do what we normally do. The virtual tools are great, Zoom meetings with parents and all those. It's not the same. So everyone is going to have to start that transition just later. So there will be a period of catch up. There will be, some adjusting. Schools will be very mindful of that. You might see a slightly different start to the year. I don't know yet, but there might be just year 7 in by themselves to start off with. It might be the reception children just start by themselves. Schools are coming up with individual plans. That's what we've just been talking about. Guidance has come out really late, so we've only got the guidance last week on how to open. but we were kind of ahead of that anyway. But we're now putting in plans in place, so there will be good communication coming from schools. I've reminded them this morning that they must communicate to parents in some detail about what it means. We'll sort the logistical things out, so things like buses and the way children come into school, all that will be thought about. We may not have the answers right now, but we will get that all ready, and children will be given time to settle. They're going to have to. They're going to have to get used to being back in that mode, and particularly sharing my experience with my son, getting sleep back together is going to be really key for him.
Yes, I think that's the case for a lot of the teenagers. Yep.
I mean, Emily talked about how some media outlets have suggested that teachers aren't working as hard as they could be. I dare say there's a very long summer ahead for anyone involved in education to iron out the issues ahead of September, because the guidance is one thing, but putting it into some sort of context that's going to work is going to be really challenging.
Yeah, I think if you're, as a parent, and you're not familiar with the process of schools, you don't understand that timetabling will have been going on for months under normal circumstances to get everything ready logistics wise for September. But with this, with bubbles, with everything, to ask schools to put that together in 2.5 weeks, was it, when you got the guidance, considering that teachers and head teachers and so on aren't paid over the summer holidays. It is all kind of prorated across the year, but that's not part of their normal working time. But I don't think they're going to be able to get away with not doing anything, given 2.5 weeks to sort all of this out.
And obviously things like, you'd normally progress, the curriculum would be set according to the age group. It's all gone. They're going to have to rework curriculum to work out where children are. So, there'll probably be some baselining of what children do and don't know, and then they'll have to adjust. So, the guidance suggests, a period of up till the summer term next year, summer 2021, might be an interim arrangement. So you might see some very different offer to what you normally do to make sure we can catch children up. And there's going to be some programs come down that will change that as well. So there's just been launched a national tutoring program to support children to catch up, and we don't have any details on that yet even, but we expect that to be available for the autumn, which would be great. It will really help some children to accelerate their learning, but at the moment it's all planning. We're trying to work it out as we go, and people will be full of it throughout the summer, and it will be a very intense start in September for teachers. And I'd say again, I think they've been magnificent and really gone above and beyond in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough to really make this work for everyone.
Absolutely, yeah.
As we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of rumours flying around. One of them is about GCSEs being or starting later next summer. Is there any substance to that, or?
There's an Ofqual consultation that's just started about how best to support those children, so those current year 10s moving through to year 11s. Media speculation around, are the exams happening in July? I've seen something today that suggests June. I think the trade unions are quite animated in terms of what is reasonable and what can be expected. I think we need to bear in mind that these children would have lost a lot of contact time with teachers, and actually if there is the ability to be flexible and catch up, I'd very much welcome that. The problem is the knock-on implications. So if you sit in an exam in July, there's an extra bit of contact time in schools. Most timetables are worked out, so those teachers that teach year 11 then go off and do support for other year groups or plan for the next year, and they won't be able to do that. Likewise, the logistics of managing exams at a different time of year is going to be challenging. And then obviously the knock-on implication around marking exams, students accessing courses, moving on to sixth form colleges, on into university, means there isn't a huge amount of time. So I'm hoping they will extend the teaching window and push the exams back somewhat, but they can't go too far back. And we wait and see what Ofqual do in terms of their consultation that's just been launched.
Yeah, we are encouraging parents to make sure that they get in and have a say in that, because obviously they're also major stakeholders in this. My practical concern was the hall in the summer. By the time it gets really hot,
any
school hall anywhere, they're all the same.
Because we don't do aircon.
I've never been in an air-conditioned school hall yet, so yeah, that will be challenged. And there is how do we get exam invigilators? They're not always available at certain times. It sounds great in theory, but actually it's such a complex process. Teachers mark the exams. Are they going to be available if that exam papers come through to them and it's end of August, early September. There's a huge amount of thinking to do yet. But, important that parents do respond, because, everyone will have a view from their own child, like I have my year 10 at the moment. What's best for her? I'd like her to do more contact time. I'd like her to have more time in school with her teachers to catch up. And that will mean challenges in terms of how we deliver.
Yeah, it was another one of those announcements that I've now come to dread, where I listen to Gavin Williamson and think, have you talked to any teachers about this yet? Because I'm seeing some challenges already. It's been frustrating, because I can't even imagine how difficult a job you have, that the Department for Education in general has, trying to get all of this stuff sorted out logistically with so few certainties at the moment. But it is fantastic that they are going back, that they are able to go back and access school again. And I'm really pleased that he's talking more about the broad and balanced curriculum, rather than, as you said, the kind of narrowing down to maths and English. Because I know, as an ex-head of maths, that would mean lots of PE teachers teaching maths lessons because kids have been taken out of PE and so on. So I mean, talking about the newspapers again, there was yet another rumour. Mum forwarded me an email this morning, like, oh, have you seen this article? And they're talking about how private schools won't narrow the curriculum.
All that, yeah.
But state schools, yes, that it'll be like 5 GCSEs and that's it. And it's one of those things where I'm thinking, how many sources can you possibly have for that? How can you know this? And why would you scare parents with it, and teachers? Because it's somewhat unhelpful. So, I mean, in terms of the challenges that you're facing, how much time are you spending having to deal with irate people who have heard rumours and are up in arms about it?
I think probably second guessing government guidance, if that's probably a nicer way of putting it, is taking all our time. We just answer questions constantly from head teachers. So just had a look at our mailbox earlier. We have a shared mailbox where these queries come in. We've responded to 2,000 emails since this has come through. So we produce a detailed pack of information. I brief counsellors. We write briefing papers for governors. We are constantly interpreting, trying to appease. Listening to people. I meet with the Department for Education twice a week, and it is literally me saying, need an answer to this, need an answer to that, need an answer to this. What do you think about that? I think you should be doing this, we should be doing that. I've yet to get Boris to acknowledge me in one of his speeches, but I ask that very regularly as well. Just to put your hands up and say, come on, let's recognise the local area. So no, it's been pretty much that. I haven't done any business as usual work really since this started. It's been long days, long hours. Because I believe my role fits in with head teachers. So every bank holiday I've been in, we have to provide that support throughout. And most of it is about reassurance, actually. Most of it is about getting people not to panic, get upset. The stress and anxiety in that workforce is huge at the moment. There's a whole issue about safety. We've handled that really well. I'm really positive about the way risk assessments were done. We've done appropriate measures and worked it through. But it's still a workforce under stress. We haven't had all our teachers in. There are teachers that haven't been anywhere near school because they're on the shielding list and haven't been able to come in. So we're going to have to, continue to adapt to what changes and provide as much support as we can, both pastorally to our children as they come back in, but equally to our staff, because they've had a really tough time too.
Just a quick thought about bubbles, which are obviously in the news at the moment. When it comes to vertical tutoring, does that mean that can't happen because bubbles have to be kept in year groups, or?
Yeah, we've again, this is one of the questions I've already put off to the DFE. Essentially, in the spirit of the guidance, no, because you couldn't deliver the broad and balanced curriculum and have a mixing of year groups. It's really, really tough to do that. So, we are allowed large bubbles. Bubbles aren't restricted to 30. There's talk of a year group could have 300 people. Well, we've got secondary schools with 360 in it. In a bubble, but if you're then mixing year groups across that through the vertical tutoring, it's going to be really tough. So there is going to have to be some compromise around the way schools work and operate. At the moment, the guidance is always vague, so that's where we seek clarity, we update, we work our way through. But I think the vertical tutor group model is going to be one that's going to be incredibly hard to deliver. As is the before and after school club model as well. That's another hard one to do, and all the extended summer activities. It's hard to have an arrangement with bubbles that suddenly then you change the children in it. It just isn't going to work. The good thing about the guidance that has come out now is there's more flexibility with adults. So adults can cross across bubbles. Originally they couldn't. There's now the ability to do that, providing they can socially distance.
So are you suggesting the guidance comes out and then about a minute later more guidance comes out to clarify, or?
No, let's not get too political. And yeah.
I reckon I average hours a day from the Department for Education to give us information about what's going on. It must be at least 10 a day.
Wow.
Yeesh. I guess the overriding message that we've been trying to pass along, that I would imagine you'd agree with, to parents, is we know that you don't know some things. We know there is a lot still up in the air, but you have to trust that schools and teachers are working their socks off to make sure that this works as best it possibly can. And you've just got to give them a chance to get it sorted out, because they've not had time yet. And so save the questions, trust that they're doing all the right things, and they will let you know as soon as they actually have answers themselves. And it will all work out in September.
But
I hope.
At the same time, parents have a huge role to play to get their children ready for September, because that 6 months off using the term loosely, is going to take quite a lot of adjustment. So
yes, I think lots of parents have a newfound appreciation for teachers and their levels of patience following homeschooling. I know we do, and we were teachers. So it's so much harder when it's your own child, it turns out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think just on that, I think thank you to parents. I think they've been absolutely brilliant. To try and work and teach at home is that quite exceptional thing. You've listened to your children. You're working hard to do the very best for them. Us in education, we're here for children. That's our job. Nobody will want a child not to succeed, and we will all want them to leave school with exactly what they would have got, regardless of this. So I think in terms of effort and commitment, I ask that parents continue to support their children now for the next 18 months. And, if you can do a bit more with them, if you can read to them, if you can support them with their learning, great. But we will do everything we possibly can to make sure children catch up as well. Because ultimately, again, our role is transition. If we can make children succeed in life, that's what we're here to do. So, I think that's what you'll see. And, it will be a roller coaster. I've got no doubt about that. But communication will be absolutely key. And every time I speak to head teachers, I reiterate to them how important positive, regular communication is to parents.
Absolutely.
I mean, from our point of view, with the schools where our children go to, they've been absolutely brilliant. First rate, the way the emails are being pitched, particularly from our daughter's school, it's just hit the nail on the head every time. Just been very, very impressed with communicating the issues, but also putting our minds at rest. So I'm sure most schools are like that.
Yes, we'll even give a shout out to Mr. Eardley, because we can do that without naming names of schools and things. He's been superb.
I will let Mr. Eardley know you've mentioned him.
Well, I think that was all the questions we had. We didn't want to interrogate you too much, because your time is incredibly precious and you have other very important things to be doing. Is there anything else that you particularly want parents to know that we can support schools with at all?
No, I don't think so. I think one thing schools have been asked to do is continue to offer remote learning. So I think it's perfectly reasonable for schools to request parents to request that schools continue to help through that route, and it's worth keeping an eye on all the information. I'm sure you've publicised it. The Oak Academy, I think, is a really positive step forward. I think there's lots of work still to do on it, but there's lots of opportunities out there. And on the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough website, we've got our own home learning page there. Go and have a look. There's a huge amount of resources that we put together, and it's always helpful to give children a little bit more. If you can do that, that would be much appreciated. But again, I reiterate my message. I think parents have been amazing throughout this, and we will repay that kind support you've given through the work that will catch up. And I'm very confident children will get back to where they need to be in as quickly a time as we possibly can.
Fabulous. Thank you very much for your time. We are very grateful.
That's great. Cheers.
Thank you very much for listening to the Parent Guide to GCSE podcast. If you would like more information on how you can support your child through their exams, head over to parentguidetojgce.com or parentguidetopost16.com. Alternatively, you can grab the GCSE Survival Guide for Parents, which is now available on Kindle or paperback from Amazon.